Rev up your engines!
Petaluma, California is the first U.S. city to ban new gas pumps. They're not allowing to make new gas stations with new gas pumps. They're banning the creation of new gas stations, and they're also banning adding new pumps to a station. If you got 4 pumps, you want to put 6 more in, they're not going to let you do that either. Petaluma, California has plans that they're going to have 0 emissions by 2030. Well, good luck on that. There's always emissions coming out of something. Now, this is a 15 square mile, 61,000 resident city in California. Now, they already have 16 gas stations and say that the furthest most people have to drive is 2.5 miles to find one. So it's not like there aren't any around. So maybe the end is starting in California. The first city to ban building new gas stations. Well, I imagine the old ones are still going to be there for quite some time if you're visiting Petaluma, California. I'm sure you'll be able to buy gasoline there, but you know, they're always forecasting the future. 2030, they want to be 0 carbon emissions. That's what? A long time from now. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Who knows? It's going to be electric cars, hydrogen cars. Who the heck knows? They won't let people build more gas stations anymore. Is it the beginning of the end? Who knows? LB10 says, should I buy a 2008 Ford Fusion that has a manufacturer buyback for engine failure? I'm looking at a 2008 Fusion with 20,000 miles. They're valued at $17,000. But since this title explains it had a manufacturer buyback for engine failure, they're asking $12,900. Now, should I buy it? No. Unless they give you absolute proof that they put a brand new engine in it that doesn't have the problems of the old one, do not buy it. You know, I personally have always wondered. Ford had a big deal where they bought back a whole bunch of Ford Focuses and Ford Fiestas for that crappy dual clutch transmissions that broke all the time. I wondered, what is Ford going to do? Are they going to junk them, sell them in another country, fix them and sell them? What are they going to do? Now, if they had absolute proof that there was a new engine in it, they're going to give you an ironclad guarantee in writing that this engine has this much warranty on it, go ahead and buy it. But if they just bought it back and now trying to sell it to you, run away from that. I always wondered what they do with them when they buy them back, because they don't tell anybody what they're doing with them. So I'm assuming they didn't fix anything. If they didn't, stay away. Don't buy it. Don't buy back a buyback. Okron said, what do you think of the Honda Civic Type R? I can't decide which sporty all-wheel drive to buy. I'm looking at STI. Help me. Okay. Well, they're screaming little cars, Civic Type Rs. Now, you want all-wheel drive. I've never actually seen a Civic Type R that was all-wheel drive. The ones I saw were all just front-wheel drive. And that was the one thing that some people had against them, because they wanted a car that could drift like mad. And it's the rear-wheel drive ones that drift well, not the front-wheel drive ones. The rear-wheel drive ones are better for drifting around. But of course, you drive a car you're going to drive every day. Yeah, you don't worry about that. The Honda makes excellent all-wheel drive systems. So if you want one and you like the way it rides, the only thing I get against the Type Rs are they ride rather rough because they're race-type cars. They're made for speeding around as fast as you can. And they're not all that comfortable. If you're thinking about buying one, go road test one first. Because I had a customer bought one, and then they got it and said, I hate it. It rides too rough. I said, why don't you road test this thing first? Test it first before you buy it. If you like the ride, you don't mind it, go ahead. They're excellent vehicles, and they do keep their values like mad. Andrew at 15 says, how can you identify highway mileage from pictures of a vehicle that's for sale? Of course, you can't by looking at pictures. Really, it's very hard to tell whether somebody had highway mileage versus city driving mileage. Unless it's, 2-year-old car that's got 110,000 miles. You don't have to be on the highway. Who could drive in a city that far unless they were an Uber driver or something, Because, like I say, pure highway mileage is only equivalent to about 10% of city mileage. So it's a lot less wear and tear on an engine. But, unless you know the guy, he lives 100 miles from work and he does highway mileage every day, that you're really not going to know. I mean, when they're really worn out, the ball joints, tie rides will be worn out and stuff if they were city driving instead of highway mileage, but it's very hard to tell. You either have to know the person or somehow find out how far they went to work back and forth. It's not that easy to tell if it's highway mileage versus city mileage, unless it's a very new car with a whole bunch of mileage on it. Here we go with a corporation screwing it to everybody. Hertz is now selling themselves to a company called Knighthead and Certares so they can exit bankruptcy. Now, under this plan, the companies Knighthead and Certares take control of Hertz when it comes out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But unfortunately, all the shareholders get nothing. They get absolutely no money at all out of the deal. As they say, under the proposal, shareholders are be wiped out entirely. They get nothing. It just amazes me. Those two companies are paying billions of dollars for what's left of Hertz, but the shareholders get big old nothing. This is why you don't invest in companies that are failing. All those kids that are playing with stocks now trying to build them up. Well, if you gotten involved, they tried to build up Hertz for a while, and it worked for a little while. But now, of course, it's going to collapse because they're going to find out this deal goes through, the shares are worth nothing. So even if you buy them for $1.90, hey, if you buy 100,000 of them, you just lost $100,000 if it's close to $1 a share. So that's pure speculations. And if it isn't bankruptcy, it's pretty typical for the shareholders to get nothing, and the creditors get whatever they can get paid, and then these other companies can buy the assets and start all over again. Now, Knighthead and Stutari, who's buying them, they're going to get 51% of the stock, but of course, it's not the old stock. The old stock's going to go to nothing. So all those investors lose everything, and these guys, they start all over again. Sounds like a pretty raw deal to me. I think they should be forced to pay for it, but that's Chapter 11 bankruptcy for you. You know, the laws are made so that the rich can get away with screwing everybody over, and then other rich people can come in and buy the assets, and then the people that invested in it, well, they're all gone. Too bad. You lose all your money. Now we put our money in, and then we start all over again. You know what I said, Hearst? They charge too much money for renting cars anyways. I checked the other day. They wanted $500 for renting a car at the airport for 3 days. They can go to blue blazes before I'm ever going to deal with a company like that again. Well, here we go. The Vietnamese are coming. The richest man in Vietnam is planning an electric car factory in the United States. The name of the company is called VinFast, and they're going to make high-end electric cars. Everybody's getting greedy and they think of the rich end of it. Now, it's not going to be a massive amount. Luxury SUVs, a VF32 and a VF33, and they're planning on maybe making 45,000 of them a year, so they're not making a massive amount. But here, let me tell you, my money is on the Chinese, not on this Vietnamese guy. He's trying to cash in on the luxury electric car stuff, right? Chinese, the other day I showed a car they're making for $5,000, and it has front and back seats so you can get 4 people in them. That's what I think is going to be making a profit, not the luxury high-end one. I think this guy's making a mistake going just for the high-end stuff, but you know, that's how rich people are. They think high-end, everybody's like them. Well, they aren't. But there's a massive amount of people who buy a $5,000 electric car. These, I'm sure they're going to be really expensive. He says he's going for the high-end one, so you know, those are probably going to be $60,000 to $150,000. I think it's a mistake. They already make some of them in Vietnam, but they're going to be a factory in the United States. They don't exactly say where yet, but it's going to be one of those assembled in the United States. Like a lot of stuff that's actually built overseas, and then they bring the parts over here, and then they put them together because they know there's going to be tariffs eventually if people start fighting over where it comes from. And if they build them in the United States, they won't tax them. So that's the other aspect of it. He'll be building them, putting them together here, but I'm sure the majority of the stuff will be built in Vietnam, the motors and everything, and the platforms, and then putting them together in the United States. I think he's making a mistake going for the high end. I think he should have gone for the short end, but I guess he realized he's not going to be able to compete against those Chinese that can make a $5,000 electric car. So any of my videos warning you not to go to chain stores to get your car repaired. Well, here's some feedback from Mr. Scott Simon, another Scott. He says, I haven't been to a Pep Boy in 15 years because there were none in my area, but they recently opened one up. So March 1st, I booked a reservation on Pep Boys online for an oil change and tire rotation. I haven't been there for 15 years. There's a new one, so I tried it out. I had an appointment for tire rotation oil change at 5:30. So I drove in, and they said, we don't make appointments that late. Go away. Now, they were not supposed to close until 6 o'clock, but at 5:45, they were closed. So I drove to a nearby Pep Boys, and it was 5:45, and they're supposed to close at 6, but the doors are locked and the people were leaving. So as far as I'm concerned, Pep Boys is now locked out of my choice to where I want to take my car for oil change and tire rotation service. All right. You know, unfortunately, see this stuff all the time these days. The employees don't care. They're not getting paid much. I'll give you a reverse example of this. When I was a kid, my old man's gas station opened up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we generally get there by about 5:45 to open stuff up. Turn on the lights, open the bays, all that stuff, right? Well, if somebody showed up at 10 minutes to 6, we drop what we were doing and serve the customer. It was a full service. We checked the oil, checked the water, washed the windows when they were filling up with gas, right? But we drop whatever we do to service the customers. If we were having a sandwich, at lunchtime we drop it and serve the customers, right? Not anymore. Especially at these chain stores. The poor guy made an appointment. He said, we don't make appointments this late. Well, he did. He called up and made one, right? And then he went to another one thinking, well, maybe they'll squeeze me in. And they had the place locked up at 5:45, and they weren't supposed to close until 6 o'clock. I just see this all the time. I even get a laugh at some of these chain stores where if it says they open at 9 a.m., you get there and it's 1 minute to 9, and they're sitting there looking at their watches, and they're not going to unlock the door until it's 9 because they don't want to start work yet. So, you know what I say? Avoid these places like the plague, like Mr. Scott's going to. Don't go there. Vote with your dollars. If they want to run such slipshod businesses, don't go there. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.